Chapter 2. The Sovereignty of God in Creation. Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created. Revelation 4:11. Having shown that sovereignty characterizes the whole being of God, let us now observe how it marks all his ways and dealings. In the great expanse of eternity, which stretches behind Genesis 1:1, the universe was unborn, and creation existed only in the mind of the great Creator. In his sovereign majesty, God dwelt all alone. We refer to that far distant period before the heavens and earth were created. There were then no angels to hymn God's praises, no creatures to occupy his notice, no rebels to be brought into subjection. The great God was all alone amid the awful silence of his own vast universe. But even at that time, if time it could be called, God was sovereign. He might create or not create according to his own good pleasure. He might create this way or that way. He might create one world or 1,000,000 worlds, and who was there to resist his will? He might call into existence 1,000,000 different creatures and place them on absolute equality, endowing them with the same faculties and placing them in the same environment. Or he might create 1,000,000 creatures, each differing from the others and possessing nothing in common save their creaturehood, and who was there to challenge his right? If he so pleased, he might call into existence a world so immense that its dimensions were utterly beyond finite computation. And were he so disposed, he might create an organism so small that nothing but the most powerful microscope could reveal its existence to human eyes. It was his sovereign right to create, on the one hand, the exalted seraphim to burn around his throne, and on the other hand, the tiny insect which dies the same hour that it is born. If the mighty God chose to have one vast gradation in his universe, from loftiest seraph to creeping reptile, from revolving worlds to floating atoms, from macrocosm to microcosm, instead of making everything uniform, who was there to question his sovereign pleasure? Behold, then, the exercise of divine sovereignty long before man ever saw the light. With whom took God counsel in the creation and disposition of his creatures? See the birds as they fly through the air, the beasts as they roam the earth, the fishes as they swim in the sea, and then ask, who was it that made them to differ? Was it not their Creator who sovereignly assigned their various locations and adaptations to them? Turn your eye to the heavens and observe the mysterious divine sovereignty which there confront the thoughtful beholder. There is one glory of the sun, and another glory of the moon, and another glory of the stars, for one star differeth from another star in glory. 1 Corinthians 15:41. But why should they? Why should the sun be more glorious than all the other planets? Why should there be stars of the first magnitude and others of the 10th? Why such amazing inequalities? Why should some of the heavenly bodies be more favorably placed than others in their relation to the sun? And why should there be shooting stars, falling stars, wandering stars, Jude 13, in a word, ruined stars? And the only possible answer is, for thy pleasure they are and were created, Revelation 4:11. Come now to our own planet. Why should 2/3 of its surface be covered with water, and why should so much of its remaining third be unfit for human cultivation or habitation? Why should there be vast stretches of marshes, deserts, and ice fields? Why should one country be so inferior, topographically, from another? Why should one be fertile and another almost barren? Why should one be so rich in minerals and another own none? Why should the climate of one be congenial and healthy and another uncongenial and unhealthy? Why should one abound in rivers and lakes and another be almost devoid of them? Why should one be constantly troubled with earthquakes and another be almost entirely free from them? Why? Because thus it pleased the Creator and upholder of all things. Look at the animal kingdom and note the wondrous variety. What comparison is possible between the lion and the lamb, the bear and the kid, the elephant and the mouse? Some, like the horse and the dog, are gifted with great intelligence, while others, like sheep and swine, are almost devoid of it. Why? Some are designed to be beasts of burden, while others enjoy a life of freedom. But why should the mule and the donkey be shackled to a life of drudgery, while the lion and the tiger are allowed to roam the jungle at their pleasure? Some are fit for food, others unfit. Some are beautiful, others ugly. Some are endowed with great strength, others are quite helpless. Some are fleet of foot, others can scarcely crawl. Contrast the hare and the tortoise. Some are of use to man, others appear to be quite valueless. Some live for centuries, others a few months at most. Some are tame, others fierce. But why all these variations and differences? What is true of the animals is equally true of the birds and fishes. But consider now the vegetable kingdom. Why should roses have thorns and lilies grow without them? Why should one flower emit a fragrant aroma and another have none? Why should one tree bear fruit, which is wholesome, and another that which is poisonous? Why should one vegetable be capable of enduring frost and another wither under it? Why should one apple tree be loaded with fruit and another tree of the same age and in the same orchard be almost barren? Why should one plant flower a dozen times in a year, and another bear blossoms but once a century? Truly, whatsoever the Lord pleased, that did he in heaven, and in the earth, in the seas, and all the deep places. Psalm 135:6. Consider the angelic hosts. Surely we shall find uniformity here, but no. There is elsewhere the same sovereign pleasure of the Creator is displayed. Some are higher in rank than others. Some are more powerful than others. Some are nearer to God than others. Scripture reveals a definite and well-defined gradation in the angelic orders. From archangel, past seraphim and cherubim, we come to principalities and powers, Ephesians 3:10, and from principalities and powers to rulers, Ephesians 6:12, and then to the angels themselves, and even among them we read of the elect angels, 1 Timothy 5:21. Again we ask, why this inequality, this difference in rank and order? And all we can say is, our God is in the heavens, he hath done whatsoever he hath pleased. Psalm 115:3. If then we see the sovereignty of God displayed throughout all creation, why should it be thought a strange thing if we behold it operating in the midst of the human family? Why should it be thought strange if to one God is pleased to give 5 talents, and to another only 1? Why should it be thought strange if one is born with a robust constitution, and another of the same parents is frail and sickly? Why should it be thought strange if Abel is cut off in his prime, while Cain is suffered to live on for many years? Why should it be thought strange that some should be born black and others white? Some be born idiots and other with high intellectual endowments. Some be born constitutionally lethargic and others full of energy. Some be born with a temperament that is selfish, fiery, egotistical, others who are naturally self-sacrificing, submissive, and meek. Why should it be thought strange if some are qualified by nature to lead and rule, while others are only fitted to follow and serve? Heredity and environment cannot account for all these variations and inequalities. No, it is God who maketh one to differ from another. Why should he? Even so, Father, for so it seemed good in thy sight, must be our reply. Learn then this basic truth, that the Creator is absolute sovereign, executing his own will, performing his own pleasure, and considering naught but his own glory. The Lord hath made all things for himself, Proverbs 16:4. And had he not a perfect right to? Since God is God, who dare challenge his prerogative? To murmur against him is rank rebellion. To question his ways is to impugn his wisdom. To criticize him is sin of the deepest dye. Have we forgotten who he is? Behold, all nations before him, as are nothing, and they are counted to him less than nothing and vanity. To whom then will ye liken God? Isaiah 40:17 and 18. Chapter 3. Sovereignty of God in Administration. The Lord hath prepared his throne in the heavens, and his kingdom ruleth over all. Psalm 103:19. First, a word concerning the need for God to govern the material world. Suppose the opposite for a moment. For the sake of argument, let us say that God created the world, designed and fixed certain laws, which men term the laws of nature, and that he then withdrew, leaving the world to its fortune and the outworking of these laws. In such a case, we should have a world over which there was no intelligent, presiding governor, a world controlled by nothing more than impersonal laws, a concept worthy of gross materialism and blank atheism. But I say, suppose it for a moment, and in the light of such a supposition, weigh well the following question. What guarantee have we that some day, ere long, the world will not be destroyed? A very superficial observation of the laws of nature reveals the fact that they are not uniform in their working. The proof of this is seen in the fact that no two seasons are alike. If then nature's laws are irregular in their operations, what guarantee have we against some dreadful catastrophe striking our earth? The wind bloweth where it listeth, or pleaseth, which means that man can neither harness nor hinder it. Sometimes the wind blows with great fury, and it might be that it should suddenly gather in volume and velocity until it became a hurricane, earth-wide in its range. If there is nothing more than the laws of nature regulating the wind, then perhaps tomorrow there may come a terrific tornado and sweep everything from the surface of the earth. What assurance have we against such a calamity? Again, of late years we have heard and read much about clouds bursting and flooding whole districts, working fearful havoc in the destruction of both property and life. Man is helpless before them, for science can devise no means to prevent clouds bursting. Then how do we know that these bursting clouds will not be multiplied indefinitely and the whole earth be deluged by their downpour? This would be nothing new. Why should not the flood of Noah's day be repeated? And what of earthquakes? Every few years, some island or some great city is swept out of existence by one of them, and what can man do? Where is the guarantee that ere long a mammoth earthquake will not destroy the whole world? Science tells us of great subterranean fires burning beneath the comparatively thin crust of our earth. How do we know but what these fires will not suddenly burst forth and consume our entire globe? Surely every reader now sees the point we are seeking to make. Deny that God is governing matter, deny that he is upholding all things by the word of his power, and all sense of security is gone. Let us pursue a similar course of reasoning in connection with the human race. Is God governing this world of ours? Is he shaping the destinies of nations, controlling the course of empires, determining the limits of dynasties? Has he prescribed the limits of evildoers, saying, "Thus far shalt thou go, and no further"? Let us suppose the opposite for a moment. Let us assume that God has delivered over the helm into the hand of his creatures, and see where such a supposition leads us. For the sake of argument, we will say that every man enters this world endowed with a will that is absolutely free, and that it is impossible to compel or even coerce him without destroying his freedom. Let us say that every man possesses a knowledge of right and wrong, that he has the power to choose between them, and that he is left entirely free to make his own choice and go his own way. Then what? Then it follows that man is sovereign, for he does as he pleases, and is the architect of his own fortune. But in such a case, we can have no assurance that ere long every man will reject the good and choose the evil. In such a case, we have no guarantee against the entire human race committing moral suicide. Let all divine restraints be removed and man be left absolutely free, and all ethical distinctions would immediately disappear. The spirit of barbarism would prevail universally, and pandemonium would reign supreme. Why not? If one nation deposes its rulers and repudiates its constitution, what is there to prevent all nations from doing the same? If little more than a century ago the streets of Paris ran with the blood of rioters, what assurance have we that before the present century closes, every city throughout the world will not witness a similar sight? What is there to hinder earth-wide lawlessness and universal anarchy? Thus we have sought to show the need, the imperative need for God to occupy the throne, take the government upon his shoulder, and control the activities and destinies of his creatures. But has the man of faith any difficulty in perceiving the government of God over this world? Does not the anointed eye discern, even amid much seeming confusion and chaos, the hand of the Most High controlling and shaping the affairs of men, even in the common concerns of everyday life? Take, for example, farmers and their crops. Suppose God left them to themselves. What would prevent them, one and all, from grassing their arable lands and devoting themselves exclusively to the rearing of cattle and dairying? In such a case, there would be a world famine of wheat and corn. Take the work of the post office. Suppose that everybody decided to write letters on Mondays only. Could the authorities cope with the mail on Tuesdays? And how would they occupy their time the balance of the week? So again with the storekeepers, what would happen if every housewife did her shopping on Wednesday and stayed at home the rest of the week? But instead of such things happening, farmers in different countries both raise sufficient cattle and grow enough grain of various kinds to supply the almost incalculable needs of the human race. The males are almost evenly distributed over the 6 days of the week, and some women shop on Monday, some on Tuesday, and so on. Do not these things clearly evidence the overruling and controlling hand of God? Having shown, in brief, the imperative need for God to reign over our world, let us now observe still further the fact that God does rule, actually rule, and that his government extends to and is exercised over all things and all creatures. 1. God governs inanimate matter. That God governs inanimate matter, that inanimate matter performs his bidding and fulfills his decrees, is clearly shown on the very frontispiece of divine revelation. God said, "Let there be light," and we read, "There was light." God said, "Let the waters under the heavens be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. And again, God said, "Let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth." And it was so. And the psalmist declares, "He spake, and it was done. He commanded, and it stood fast." What is stated in Genesis 1 is afterwards illustrated all through the Bible. After the creation of Adam, 16 centuries went by before even a shower of rain fell upon the earth. For before Noah, there went up a mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. Genesis 2:6. But when the iniquities of the antediluvians had come to the full, then God said, "And behold, I, even I, do bring a flood of waters upon the earth, to destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life from under heaven, and everything that is in the earth shall die." And in fulfillment of this we read, "In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened, and the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. Genesis 6:17 and 7:11 and 12. Witness God's absolute and sovereign control of inanimate matter in connection with the plagues of Egypt. At his bidding, the light was turned into darkness and rivers into blood. Hail fell, and death came down upon the godless land of the Nile until even its haughty monarch was compelled to cry out for deliverance. Note particularly how the inspired record here emphasizes God's absolute control over the elements. "And Moses stretched forth his rod toward heaven, and the Lord sent thunder and hail, and the fire ran along upon the ground, and the Lord rained hail upon the land of Egypt. So there was hail, and fire mingled with the hail, very grievous, such as there was none like it in all the land of Egypt, since it became a nation. And the hail smote throughout all the land of Egypt, all that was in the field, both man and beast, and the hail smote every herb of the field, and brake every tree of the field. Only in the land of Goshen, where the children of Israel were, was there no hail." Exodus 9:23-26. The same distinction was observed in connection with the 9th plague. "And the Lord said unto Moses, Stretch out thine hand toward heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, even darkness which may be felt. And Moses stretched forth his hand toward heaven, and there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt 3 days. They saw not one another, neither rose any from his place for 3 days, but all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings." Exodus 10:21-23. The above examples are by no means isolated cases. At God's decree, fire and brimstone descended from heaven, and the cities of the plain were destroyed, and a fertile valley was converted into a loathsome sea of death. At his bidding, the waters of the Red Sea parted asunder so that the Israelites passed over dry shod. And at his word, they rolled back again and destroyed the Egyptians who were pursuing them. A word from him, and the earth opened her mouth, and Korah and his rebellious company were swallowed up. The furnace of Nebuchadnezzar was heated 7 times beyond its normal temperature, and into it 3 of God's children were cast, but the fire did not so much as scorch their clothes, though it slew the men who cast them into it. What a demonstration of the Creator's governmental control over the elements was furnished when he became flesh and tabernacled among men. Behold him asleep in the boat. A storm arises. The winds roar and the waves are lashed into fury. The disciples who are with him, fearful lest their little craft should founder, awake their master, saying, "Carest thou not that we perish?" And then we read, "And he arose and rebuked the wind and said unto the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm." Mark 4:39. Mark again, the sea, at the will of its creator, bore him up upon its waves. At a word from him, the fig tree withered. At his touch, disease fled instantly. The heavenly bodies are also ruled by their Maker and perform his sovereign pleasure. Take 2 illustrations. At God's bidding, the sun went back 10 degrees on the dial of Ahaz to help the weak faith of Hezekiah. In New Testament times, God caused a star to herald the incarnation of his Son, the star which appeared unto the wise men of the East. This star, we are told, went before them till it came and stood over where the young child was. Matthew 2:9. What a declaration is this! He sendeth forth his commandment upon earth. His word runneth very swiftly. He giveth snow like wool. He scattereth the hoarfrost like ashes. He casteth forth his ice like morsels. Who can stand before his cold? He sendeth out his word and melteth them. He causeth his wind to blow, and the waters flow. Psalm 147, 15-18. The mutations of the elements are beneath God's sovereign control. It is God who withholds the rain, and it is God who gives the rain when he wills, where he wills, as he wills, on whom he wills. Weather bureaus may attempt to give forecasts of the weather, but how frequently God mocks their calculations. Sunspots, the varying activities of the planets, the appearing and disappearing of comets to which abnormal weather is sometimes attributed, atmospheric disturbances are merely secondary causes, for behind them all is God himself. Let his word speak once more. And also I have withholden the rain from you, when there were yet 3 months to the harvest. And I cause it to rain upon one city, and cause it not to rain upon another city. One piece was rained upon, and the piece whereon it rained not withered. So 2 or 3 cities wandered unto one city to drink water, but they were not satisfied. Yet have ye not returned unto me, saith the Lord? I have smitten you with blasting and mildew. When your gardens and your vineyards and your fig trees and your olive trees increased, the palmer worm devoured them. Yet have ye not returned unto me, saith the Lord? I have sent among you the pestilence after the manner of Egypt. Your young men have I slain with the sword, and have taken away your horses, and I have made the stink of your camps to come up into your nostrils. Yet have you not returned unto me, saith the Lord? Amos 4, 7-10. Truly then, God governs inanimate matter. Earth and air, fire and water, hail and snow, stormy winds and angry seas, all perform the word of his power and fulfill his sovereign pleasure. Therefore, when we complain about the weather, we are, in reality, murmuring against God.